Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talking Buffalo Podcast, part of the Blue Wire Network. I am your host, Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for locking in. It is Casual Friday, even though it is being taped on a late night on Thursday. The Buffalo Sabres just played. Like I said, Casual Friday. That means, as always, I got my good buddy, Joe Yerdon, with me. What's up, man? We'll talk about this game in a couple minutes. Not the greatest game, but as a whole, we're going to talk about this a little bit throughout the show. My attitude and mindset with the Buffalo Sabres is so night and day from a year ago. You've been doing with this, maybe not necessarily every week, but even going back, you were on a lot, even going back a year ago, and you remember how just vile I felt towards the Buffalo Sabres. And again, Thursday night's mini stinker against the St. Louis Blues, notwithstanding, it's all good vibes for me, which is just, it blows my mind. It's crazy, man. But anyway, how you doing?
No, doing okay. It was I was trying to get back in the flow of watching baseball again this week, and I'm just it's tough. There's so many other things going on, you know, just to watch. Like, what was it? I was ready to watch the game Wednesday night, and then I took a look at what the AEW card was, and I was like, well, okay, well, I'm gonna watch that. And I was like, well, baseball will still be going after the game, and then it was just like, you know, the Yankees were losing. I was like, forget it. I don't want to watch that. So I skipped out on that, and then it was the Pelicans were playing they had their play-in game with San Antonio, and they freaking kicked ass. So that was cool. But it's just there's so many things going on. Like, I was thankful that there wasn't really a hockey game for me to watch. I mean, I could have watched some hockey last night, but like that was about fourth on the list of things I was going to watch anyways. I mean, if the Sabres are playing, that's a little different, but like, I don't know, man. There's too much going on. It's weird that, like, you know, I don't know. I got so bent out of shape about how stupid the baseball lockout was that I was just like, whatever, guys, stay away. Just, you know, call me when it matters, you know?
Look, I'm with you with baseball, and like, confession time. I for a long time, and I'm not even talking about as a little kid. I'm talking about as an adult. Until recently, baseball was right there with football for me in terms of my favorite sport. Fantasy baseball. I am a fantasy baseball nut. Like, I play a lot of daily, or I did play a lot of daily, and I've been in the same league for 13 years. And I'm telling you, man, I would have documents in my own data, not other people's stuff, my own. I would create lists and sleeper lists. I would put so much time and so much effort into baseball and fan. And I don't know what it is. Over the last couple of years, it's just, I've really fallen out of favor for whatever reason. I don't know. Some of it, the lockout. I don't know, just a variety of things. Plus, I think, you know, my plate is kind of full in life right now. It's like, you got to sacrifice something. Now I'm doing a podcast. Now I'm doing video. I just don't have the time to put into it. But I'm still following the Yankees. The difference between now for me and a couple of years ago is I could tell you 29, 30 other teams, their roster from top to bottom, how they're all doing. But right now, all my attention for the most part is pretty much on the Yankees, which, by the way, that reminds me, I just said what a difference a year makes when it comes to, like, how I feel about the Sabres. What a difference a year makes in Buffalo with baseball, too, because about a year or so ago, like, the Toronto Blue Jays were the shit, man. Everyone's walking around with Buffalo Blue Jays shirts. And now I know Vlad Guerrero had 3 home runs against the Yanks the other night, but, you know, that aside, I don't know, unless you tweet something about, I don't ever see any Yankee or Blue Jay tweets on Buffalo Twitter. It's like the Buffalo Blue Jays are dead.
Yeah, it's out of sight, out of mind. I was at I went to one of the early Bison's games with Dan Dunleavy. Dan, you know, not to be all like, well, you know, I got friends that are really cool friends, but Dan was like, hey, I got an extra ticket. You want to come to the game? I was like, yeah, okay. And, you know, we're sitting there, and, you know, it's an afternoon game, so it's not really that big of not that huge of a crowd, and, you know, the weather was kind of whatever. It started raining at some point, so we were just like, all right, peace out, we're gone. But of everybody there watching the game, I didn't see too much Blue Jays gear there. They had a guy doing like one of the games between innings, and they were playing the Iowa Cubs, and so he had a Cubs jersey on and a Blue Jays hat on, and I'm like, what? Like, okay, all right, man. But there's still, you know, tons of fans with Yankee gear on, and some Red Sox gear. I didn't see any Mets I don't know. Mets are like a dirty word for Buffalo baseball fans, but just because of how the Mets treated the AAA team when they had them here. But
Sure. It was bad. Yeah.
it was real bad. It was real
was.
bad.
I remember.
But like, I don't know, man. Like, it's the Blue Jay fever went away. I think it's, I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that they're like, oh right, they're a Toronto team. We don't like Toronto.
Do you remember how many conversations we had, like I said, roughly a year or so ago, where we were talking about if Buffalo could support a major league team or if Buffalo would support a major league team? I think those questions have been answered already.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a and by the way, that's not me disrespecting the good people of Western New York, and sports fans. 81 games and baseball is it feels like a fad when it comes to Buffalo, which is okay. I mean, well, they're supportive of the minor league team. I mean, this is one of the better minor league fan bases, but I always thought those shoes were a little bit too big for Buffalo to be able to financially and just emotionally invest in a baseball team when you got football and hockey. Maybe if you didn't have football and hockey, maybe, you know what I'm saying? You feel that way, right?
Yeah. Baseball's such a long haul. And, if you got baseball starting up, say, the Sabres were the playoff team. I know, jokes. I got jokes. I got lots of jokes. But say the Sabres are a playoff team and baseball starting up, nobody's going to be dialed in on the baseball team. Like, they're going to be like, hey, listen, we got the hockey team's getting ready to start up. We're going to have the party in the plaza going on here soon. I guess maybe schedule a baseball game while that's going on. Good luck to you. But,
right.
But like, I just don't see it. Now, of course, Bison's home opener had more people than the Sabres home opener this year. So, there's that whole thing. But
you just reminded me of something. Let me throw some shade. You said the Bison's home opener. Pretty much any Bison's game is better than any Tampa Bay Rays game.
Yeah.
Disgusting. Yeah. Absolutely disgusting. I'm telling you right now, those fans are the worst. This team has been good for years, and it's April. What are they, 7-10 games into the season? And they can't even get 7,600 fans. I don't know who they were playing. Who gives a shit who they were playing? I think they were playing the A's. I don't care who you're playing. You want to talk about a city or an area, a region that does not deserve a Major League Baseball team? It's Tampa. Tampa doesn't deserve a football team either because they're the worst fans.
Wow.
They're only fans when Tom Brady comes. Dude, I mean, you know this, man. I'm friends with Damone Harris. He was there for a couple of years. I got free-ass tickets to go to games. There were as many fans of the other team or fans who weren't fans of either team, whether it was Tampa and the other team they're playing. They'd be playing the Saints, and people walking around with Vikings jerseys and Kansas City Chiefs jerseys. And I get it. I know it's a transplant city. Nobody's got to tell me. I lived there for 5 years, but the fans are the worst. The Tampa Bay Lightning, I will give some credit to. That seems like a pretty good fan base. Like, you go downtown on Tampa during hockey season, go to a bar, you're going to get a nice crowd, and it's going to feel like a legitimate fan base. Baseball, football, Tampa, disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
How much does the fact that the baseball team plays in St. Petersburg, away from everything, and Tampa Stadium being kind of like out on its own, have to do? Does that have an effect on anything?
I say, first of all, St. Petersburg alone should be able to support the team. 25 minutes, Joe. I think Raymond James Stadium is, I forgot the name of the stadium, where the Yankees play spring training and then the minor league team plays. It's 20 to 25 minutes. It's like going from Williamsville to downtown to go to a Bills game or to a Sabres game. It ain't that far. Bullshit. Don't defend St. Petersburg.
I was just throwing questions. I went. Listen, I was the one time I was in Tampa. I was there for maybe 24 hours, so I didn't really. I got to see my hotel. I got to see the arena, and
beautiful.
I got to see like whatever the hockey bar is after the game. That was like basically a Buffalo bar in Tampa. So that was all I got to see, really. I mean, the canal side walk there, or the channel side walk, which is real nice, but I didn't see nothing. I saw signs for Raymond James Stadium. I like heading out towards the airport. It was like, go to the airport one way, stadium's the other way. And I was like, well, all right, bye. See ya. But yeah, that if anybody said I explored Tampa, no, I did not do that.
It's a great city. It's
beautiful. Very little of it.
Good people, nice people, good city, lots to do. Horrible fans. They're not even fans. They do it because it's trendy. That's it.
Yeah, I get that.
They suck.
Did you happen to see what the scam they pulled, the Rays pulled for opening day?
No. What did they do?
They announced that they sold out opening day, which was like, wow, hey, that's really cool. They didn't mention that they were not allowing tickets to be sold in the third level. So people were taking pictures in the
That's
stadium.
right. I saw that.
And the entire upper level is empty. And they're like, what do you mean? What, it's sold out? Like what? Like what? They're like, oh, well, we didn't sell tickets upstairs. It's like, well, the bottom two levels don't look full either. Like what kind of joke is this?
Joe and I are both wrestling fans, and we were talking wrestling a few minutes before the podcast, before we started taping. They do that with wrestling all the time too. Like they'll completely close off the top, and then they'll announce a sellout or whatever, or they'll completely like with the TVs, you won't even get to see those areas. Whatever. I don't know how this ended up becoming a Tampa. Well, because you mentioned the Bison's home opener in attendance, and I'm sitting there saying the Bison, or I don't think Buffalo could support a Major League Baseball team, but I didn't say that disrespectfully towards Buffalo sports fans, because they are sports fans. It's more of a question of economic reasons, and you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. But Tampa, man, they're not it.
Now I'll tell you this. I'm looking in July. I'm taking my dad to. We're going to see a couple of Yankees games, one in Cleveland, one in Pittsburgh.
Nice.
So I was looking at the tickets prices in Pittsburgh. Now they don't have the stadium's not huge. Like there's compared to other stadiums, it's like maybe 35,000, 36,000. Like it's about the same. Max attendance is like Fenway Park, but it's gorgeous. PNC Park's amazing. And I was looking up prices because I was thinking like, okay, like where are we going to be able to sit? And I was looking, and seats like right behind, like between first base and third base behind home plate. And you can get in pretty close for like $65 a ticket. And I'm like, is there a problem in Pittsburgh? Like, I mean, I know the team stinks, but like,
it's funny.
I don't know, man. You'd think they would jack the prices up because the Yankees were coming to town, but like, no. Like, I mean, if maybe they are. I mean, I don't know what normal Pirates prices are, but like, I'm looking at these and like, I'm going to tell my dad, I was like, so how close do you want to sit? Because that's really going to be like, as like the money cost of this is going to be nothing. Like
those might be the jacked up prices already, man.
That's what I mean. Like, but like $65 to like basically sit behind home plate.
Even in Florida in spring training where I live. So I live 10 minutes away from where the Pirates have spring training. I lived about 15 minutes away from where the Orioles have spring training. And I noticed the Yankee price hike. Like they would be playing most teams and the tickets would be cheaper, and the Yankees would come in for that day and tickets would go up 40, 50% just for that game. It's funny you say that, because I've never been to Pittsburgh for a game, and I'm actually considering going to a game as well this summer. I don't know if a couple of friends were talking about taking a trip for the weekend. I don't know if it's going to be the Yankees or whatever, but it would be nice to go to Pittsburgh.
Yankees are there like July 5th and 6th. I think it's only 2 days. So it's right after the holiday, but and it's like midweek. It's not a weekend. So that maybe that plays a part into it. I don't know, but yeah, it was just weird. Like, I mean, listen, go to a game in Pittsburgh. I don't care. It doesn't matter who's playing. Watch them go play the freaking Rays. It doesn't matter. Like that, watch them play the A's. Watch them play somebody else bad. You'll love it, because there's not a bad seat in the entire stadium. Like the view is great. And everything else, like just having to do with the stadium itself it's freaking awesome. It's such a great place.
As boring as baseball could be watching it on television, I will say the experience of going to a game is really it's different. I love going to baseball games. I'm not a big, unless the Yankees are playing and I'm in the mood, I don't really watch a lot of games anymore. But when I'm at a game, I always find a way to I always enjoy it. I just like the vibe. I like the atmosphere. One question, then I want to talk some Sabres. Got nothing to do with sports, but I want to, and we've never talked about this before, so I'm actually asking this for the first time. Okay. Are you a fan of MCU? Marvel, like the MCU?
Oh, yeah. Universe? Yeah. No, I'm a total, like Marvel, DC, all that stuff. I geek out for all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you what I'm doing right now. Every now and then, and again, I've said this before, I work from home, so I get a lot of time to watch stuff while I work. And I take on these projects, like I did Christmas movies. I don't know what it is, for whatever reason. I didn't grow up watching all the shit that everyone else did, or even as a young adult. Like I watched 25 Christmas movies that I'd never seen before this season. Now I'm doing MCU. Now there's 27 of them. I looked it up. I did the research. They're chronological. So what I'm doing is I'm binging. Doctor Strange 2 is coming out on May 6th. Which, by the way, folks, if you're watching and listening, that's my birthday. If you want to hit my Amazon wish list up, I'm just playing. But seriously, Doctor Strange 2 is coming out May 6th. So I said, you know what? I'm going to watch all these movies, all 27 of them. Now, I will say this. Well, here's the thing.
I hope you started 2 months ago.
No, I started 2 days ago.
Oh, no. Okay.
That's funny that you say that. But seriously now, listen, I have watched some of them before. Some I've never seen at all.
Mhm.
Some I've watched, like say we'll be laying around the house in one of the movies like Avengers or something like that. It'll be on TBS. You know, it's on like USA Network or
Yeah.
TBS or TNT all the time.
Mhm.
I've watched bits and pieces, or sometimes I've watched a movie in its entirety, but I only like loosely paid attention because once you kind of if you don't know what's going on, it's easy to kind of just lose your focus because you're like, what the hell is going on? You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
there's a lot of stories and layers, as you know, in the MCU universe. And so I watched it before, but I never really paid attention to all the details and like really buckled down. Now I'm
Mhm.
watching them every second of every movie and I'm studying them like it's a college class. So I started this. I decided to start this just what today. We're taping this late Thursday. I think I started this Tuesday. I've already watched six. I've watched
6?
six. And again,
Oh
these
my
are all in
god.
chronological order. So I've already
Like
seen,
order of release, right?
yeah,
Like,
no, no,
okay.
no, 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 no. Order of the time, like the time frame of when it fits
Oh.
together, not necessarily in the
Oh,
order that they were
man.
released. So I'm doing it
Oh,
chronologically,
man.
like
You
it how it fits.
you've gone in
Yeah,
neck deep.
big
Holy
time,
cow.
big time. And
Okay.
again, I know. Listen, I know who Captain America is. I know who Iron Man is. I know Robert Downey
Mhm.
is. I'm not going to play oblivious to all that, but I didn't know a lot of the stories, and I'm starting to learn them, and I love it already. Like I've already seen Captain America, the first Avenger, that was first.
Mhm.
Then there was and again, this is why it's chronological. Captain Marvel is from only 2019, but that's number two chronologically
Yep.
in MCU. Then it was Iron Man 1 and 2, then the Incredible Hulk, and then this morning I watched Thor, the first Thor. It just says
Mhm.
Thor. There's nothing to it. So I've learned like how Captain America came to be. He was this little skinny ass little runt
Right.
at the
Right.
beginning. I've learned about the Incredible Hulk, how he became the Hulk. It's been really cool. Captain Marvel is really cool. The only movie so far of the six that I hated, the Incredible Hulk, thought it sucked. I didn't like Ed. I love Ed Norton Jr. as an actor.
Mhm.
Just didn't feel right. He didn't fit for me. I understand why he didn't continue on in the series as
Oh,
Hulk or as
there
Bruce Banner.
there's probably a lot of reasons for that, but yeah.
Probably. And I know this is unpopular because I know how much everyone loves Tony Starks, but I'm not a huge Tony Starks fan.
Mm.
So, but again, it was cool just learning the story so far. So yeah, I'm six in
Man,
so far, far and away to this point through the first six. Thor is by a million miles. Thor's my favorite one.
you
It was
are
my favorite movie, and he was my favorite character. He's funny, dude. He's funny, man.
yeah.
What was it? So I don't know. I'm might be triggering your memory. Maybe I won't. The first story gets sent to, or he gets banished to Earth to
Mhm.
you know, and he's looking for hammer. He walked into a pet store and it's like he declared, I'd like to buy a horse. You know, they got like birds and shit in there. It says, I'd like to buy a horse. It was just, I literally laughed out loud. It was just funny. But you are an MCU guy, which is
I am.
cool.
Like, I mean, I'm not to the level of Dell. Like
I
Dell
know.
Reed, he's above and beyond. Like I mean, Dell and I are both comic dorks. Like, let's not get
Mhm.
it confused. But Dell is so much more into Marvel than I am. Like, I was more of a casual Marvel fan when they started making the movies, and obviously, they started making the movies. Wow, okay, these are pretty good. These are fun. But like, it didn't. In most cases, it didn't make me run out and buy like the source material, but go buy a graphic novel and be like, okay, I want to read about this. There was only one that did that. There's only one that did that, and it was Captain America and the Winter Soldier. That was the only one that made me go out and be like, oh, okay, I got to read up on this. Like,
Yeah.
I want to read more of this. So when you get to that one's my favorite, I think, of all of them.
Really.
Because the story itself is really good. Now, when you get later on into how things go, and I'm not gonna spoil anything for you, but the way that the story from that gets played out in future movies is kind of annoying to me. I didn't really care for the twists and turns that came with that, but that movie on its own, to me, is it's like a super like a spy thriller kind of movie. Like, it's a legit really good movie. Like that one, Black Panther's great. Um Thor Ragnarok is like the most fun movie out of all of them, like out of every single one of them. And like
I can imagine.
after the first Avengers movie, I didn't really care. I didn't like Civil War. The 2-part, Endgame set that they did. Like, I don't know, man. It was. I don't know. I didn't. I think there was at some point where I got comic burnout. And it comes from all the movies. The TV show, like the DC TV shows. Like, there's so many of those, and like I was binging like Arrow and the Flash, and then all the Marvel movies are out, and I'm watching all these things, and I'm just like, at some point, I was just like, all right, I need a break. I've seen too many capes. I've seen too much stuff, and I'm just like, man, it's
not me.
It's crazy because it's crazy because it's like it's oversaturated, but also like it's not enough for a lot of people. Like I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm trying to take in everything, but it's just, oh man, like I've been much more picky and choosy about how to get it. Like I'm trying to not play into my OCD of like, I know I gotta watch every single thing right away. I gotta stay on top of it. I gotta collect them all. Gotta Pokemon the movies. Like just, I can't.
I'm the opposite.
I can't do it, man. It's too much. It's way too much.
Want to hear something funny real quick here before we go to a break, and then we'll talk some Sabres and Owen Power here. So we're taping this. Joe and I are taping this late Thursday night. Typically for Casual Friday, we tape this around lunchtime. We decided to go late tonight because Owen Power is having he had his Sabres home debut, and I felt like the content just wouldn't be fresh if we glossed or if we skipped over that entirely and talked about a game that didn't even happen. But what's funny, Joe, is I said something to my buddy right before we started taping. I said, damn, I wish Joe and I would have taped today because I came home tonight and I'm like, I kind of want to watch the next movie. I was like, I don't want to do a podcast. I want to watch the Avengers. I might be up to 4 a.m. because when this all wraps and I get it all up on YouTube and, the audio podcast is out, I might end up watching the Avengers. It's like I watched the separate ones and now this is the first Avengers movie where they're together.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I can't wait. And I don't do shit in moderation, which is a terrible habit. But like, I'm just going to keep binging. You said 27 of these, so I'm already through 6. Man. Shit, man. By the time we tape next week, depending on how things go, I'll probably be more than halfway through 27 of them. More than halfway, I predict.
I'm just really impressed that you're trying to cram all these in before the second Doctor Strange movie comes out. Because I feel like when the first one came out, that I think that came at a point where there was some half burnout even with Marvel fans because they're just like, oh, okay, like listen, we've had a lot of movies, like let's just take it easy. And I think some of like maybe the fan reaction to it, maybe not necessarily like critics. Nobody gives a crap what critics say about comic movies. They either hate them or they go over the top, and it's like, all right, that's enough. But I think when the first Doctor Strange came out, people were so mad about Tilda Swinton and the role that she had. And like, it's Tilda Swinton. She's a fantastic actress, but her role should have been played by an Asian person. And that's not great. And like that, I think a lot of that movie kind of suffered because that was a huge distraction. And also it's like a time travel, time bending kind of movie. And like, that just messes with people's heads. I watched it like probably a couple of years after it came out. I thought it was great. Friggin' Cumberbatch is awesome. He's just such a dick as Doctor Strange. Like Doctor Strange is kind of like a, smart, cocky dick guy, and he plays it to the hilt, and it's great. Like you can't hate Cumberbatch in like literally anything he does.
He's a good actor. So he's a good actor at doing that because I watched The Power of the Dog, which was just nominated for an Oscar. Mm-hmm. Same kind of role too.
Yeah,
Pop his dick.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, but him as Sherlock. Like I don't know if you ever saw the Sherlock BBC like short run series. Oh man, it's really good. It's really, really, really good. And one of the guy who plays Watson is the guy who played Tim in the BBC Office. And I don't know I don't know if you ever watched the BBC Office.
I did. I have it in my mind who you're talking about.
Yeah, he basically the British version of Jim.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, those two in Watson that are in Sherlock, freaking great. It's a fantastic series.
Well, I'll tell you, I got two reasons why I'm binging. A, like I said, I want to understand it now. Like I said, I've watched some of these movies. I've watched bits and pieces of almost all of them, but now I want to understand them. I want to understand the stories and what they mean and these characters better.
Mhm.
Plus, some good starting five draft material to come out of some MCU stuff.
I mean, I didn't you already do some of that with Dell? Like,
No,
what? No, not at all.
no,
Oh
not
man. Well,
especially
probably
not
because
Dell.
no, I was just say Dell probably would have mopped the
He
floor with it.
we might have done categories that weren't necessarily directly MCU stuff, but he
Mhm.
would incorporate those characters or movies
Okay.
into the drafts anyway. No, I didn't know anything about him. So now I
Oh
want to know
man.
enough, but I'm not messing with him when it comes to MCU shit. I'll tell you that right now. He's 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 obsessed with that shit. But all right, let's take a real quick break. We're gonna come right back and we're gonna talk Buffalo Sabres. Owen Power made his Buffalo Sabres home debut. Be right back in about 20 seconds. All right, I'm back with Joe Yerdon. So, um, well, let's start with Thursday night's game, I guess. Not a great night for the Buffalo Sabres. They lose, was it 6-2? The St. Louis, the
I
empty
think it was
netter?
6-2 was the
Yeah,
final.
6-2 with the empty netter. Owen Power made his home debut. He did his NHL debut was Tuesday in Toronto, which I do want to talk about that as well. But he had an assist, so he got his first point. Got beat pretty bad on one play, which whatever, it's just gonna happen, man. But
Right.
overall, I mean, I really don't care so much to talk about the game itself, but from what you've seen from Owen Power over, say, the first two games, what are you thinking? And just this team, generally speaking, like I said, not. I mean, we're not gonna act like Thursday night's game didn't happen because it
Right.
did. But just your thoughts on this team over the last handful of games. I got some specific thoughts on Toronto, but we'll get to that in we'll get to that in a few. I had a tweet that was that went viral on Twitter. A lot of people liked it. I'll get to that in a second, but I got you on, man. I want to get your thoughts just on what you're seeing from the Sabres of late. And like I said, your first couple looks at Owen Power now. What are you thinking?
Well, I'll start with Power because I mean he's the man of the hour. Power's the man of the hour. Holy God, I can't believe I'm doing rhymes.
By the way,
Unbelievable. Anyways, but he's showing me everything that he had at Michigan, but like at the pro level, like at the calmness to his game, the confidence to his game, his ability to not get really crossed up in anything. He's just, I mean, they plugged him in and just said, "Okay, man, go." And that to me is, it's a test. Like that's a big test from Don Granato to do that, but it's also showing me that he's ready. He's going to be a very good, like right off the bat, he's going to be a very good defenseman. And give him a little time to grow into it and really really blossom because again, defense is a very difficult position to play when you're young. Like that's goaltending is the hardest. Defense is right behind it. Because there's so much adjustment that you got to do because going from college to pros in a week, like it's a big step up in quality. That's a
Mhm.
very 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 large step up in quality, and he's looked really good. I mean, play against St. Louis, whatever, fine. Like, oh, if you're gonna hang that around his neck for forever because like, get a life, please. But he's shown he's shown that he's got it together. Like he's going to be a very very good player, and I like that he's seemingly not bothered by anything. Like he's gotten penalty kill time right away, which again first couple of games in the NHL he's getting penalty. He's playing in the penalty kill unit. Like that's impressive. Like and not showing any ill effects. Like they stopped what 4 or 5 Toronto power plays. They didn't let Toronto score the power play. So that's impressive. And he's gotten a little bit of power play time. He's going to get more as time goes on. Like that's without a doubt. I mean, Darlene and him are going to be the power play quarterbacks for the next God knows how long.
Mhm.
As long as they don't screw things up like that, those two are going to be the guys that are going to carry the power play for the next however long. So that's what I look forward to seeing a little bit more from him. You want to see, I want to see that offensive game kind of show itself a little bit early on, but if it doesn't, I'm not bothered by it one bit. He's already played 40 whatever games at Michigan. Like, fine. Like, that's fine. He's played those games at Michigan. He played at played in world championships last year for Canada. Like, this kid's got it together, man. He's really good. He's going to be really, really good. And, I can't imagine, really getting too difficult about anything he's done through 2 games. It'd be really tough to do that. But man, I've really liked what I've seen.
Let me ask you this question, and the last thing we want to do is compare Owen Power to Rasmus Dahlin.
Mhm.
But I will, well, I sort of am doing that because it feels to me, and let me know if I'm wrong, and you certainly would know better than me. Rasmus Dahlin comes into the league a couple years ago with all the God-given talent in the world,
Mhm.
electrifying. If we want to use a wrestler, he was the Rock. You know what I mean? He's
Yeah.
just had all this skill, but maybe was a little bit young and immature to an extent. Not saying that necessarily even in a bad way. It's just his
Mhm.
age.
Right.
Whereas it seems to me like Owen Power might not have that flash that Rasmus Dahlin does, that God-given physical skill to make you
Mhm.
go, and,
Yeah.
and have your jaw drop in a play like we've seen now more often too with Rasmus Dahlin of late, especially. But Owen
Yeah.
Power seems to come into the league a little more mentally ready, a little more mature for, I guess, being a rookie. Well, literally a rookie in his first 2 games, and it just seems like he seems to me like he's a little more ahead of the curve when it comes to the mental side of hockey. Whereas Rasmus came in the league, like I said, just a spectacular, God-given human highlight film. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and you know what? It does. But he's coming into the NHL a year older than Dahlin was
True.
as a rookie. Dahlin had played a couple of years in the SHL, the men's league in Sweden, so he had that maturity, that part of maturity to his game already. Powers coming in after playing 2 college seasons, and playing for Team Canada, and it's a different kind of setup, listen, Sweden's a loaded group. Like, they're not, they don't need Dahlin to play for them at world championships. It's not to say that Canada's not loaded, because they are, but like, when you had guys bubbled up and doing all that stuff, it was a little different. And guys, NHL guys cut out from world championships no matter what. Like, they're just kind of like, yeah, whatever. They much rather go on vacation than go play in a hockey tournament in Europe,
Mhm.
after the season, after the playoffs are done. Like, they got better things to do. But the fact that Power was asked, being an 18-year-old and playing 1 year in college, that he got to do that, it's impressive. I mean, that says a lot. But he should be a little bit more mature, and it's not to say that Dahlin didn't have this kind of upbringing in Sweden, because he'd basically been playing in the SHL from when he was 16 or 17 until he was drafted. Like, that's impressive. It's really
Mhm.
impressive. Um, but the situation Power's coming into right now in Buffalo, at least right now on appearances, seems very steady, safe, and not at all goofy. Like, it's Dahlin comes in and he has Phil Housley as his coach, which is pretty good. It's pretty good for an offensively gifted defenseman to have a guy who was an unbelievable offensive defenseman, like
Sure.
Housley. And Housley coached him like he was coaching like a young version, himself as a rookie. He's like, hey man, you got the talent, you just go. You can score, you can handle, you can do whatever you want. And he put up the points. People forget about that. Like, people forget he put up a ton of points as an 18-year-old and on a bad team. let's not forget, the Sabres still weren't good, at that point. And he was doing stuff that guys like Bobby Orr didn't do. Housley was the guy who, was the mark that he had to try to beat. And nobody's going to touch that, because 1980s hockey is a whole freakish thing. But like, he did something Bobby Orr didn't do, man. Like, Bobby Orr's the greatest defenseman of all time. Arguably, he's top 3 player of all time in the NHL. So, but it's Power's coming into a much better situation than Dahlin did. And I mean, I don't have to go down the road and say,
Right.
it's everybody knows how that went. Housley was here, then he wasn't. Ralph was here, and Ralph would try to overcorrect everything that Darlene was in his rookie year, and that didn't work. So, it's a different situation where, Darlene got set back because things were stupid in Buffalo. Let's be straight out. Power's coming into a situation where it's different. There's a coaching confidence here. It's vibes. If you want to call it the vibes, it's fine. But the way Donato coaches the team, they've got Dan Girardi, helping out with coaching guys on the side, coaching the defensemen especially. He's proving to be invaluable to Darlene. He'll be invaluable to Power in helping him grow into the NHL roles. And it's, if Power has a better early part of his career, it's due in part that he's coming into the situation as it is now.
Sure.
We don't want to play Back to the Future and hop in the DeLorean and take Owen Power back to, at this age, back to, when Darlene first came in and say, let's see how he does in this situation. Like, just be thankful the situation is what it is now, so that both guys can flourish and both guys can do really well. I have zero qualms that Power is gonna be a very, very good player.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, that's an outstanding point that you bring up too, that he is coming into, not that people are or should compare the two. I was just talking about like their attributes as they came into the league. But yeah, you're 100% right. Owen Power is definitely coming into a much better situation. It's almost as oddly as it sounds, because at the beginning of the year, I was like, God, please just make Owen Power get here soon. But it's like, he doesn't need to come in here and be the hero from day one. You know what I'm saying? Where I kind of felt like, to some extent, Rasmus Dahlin, to some extent, he had to. This team is playing. You know what's funny? And again, Thursday night, notwithstanding, and they got handled pretty easily in Tampa, but this team seems to play well in kind of big moment games. Like beating Jack Eichel was really cool. Winning the Heritage Classic in Canada was really cool. Tuesday night in Owen Power's NHL debut, they beat up on the Leafs, man, and Power played very well. I think he played like almost 20 minutes of ice time. He was a +2, and it was fun. I put up a tweet. I'm gonna slap it up. If you're watching this on YouTube, by the way, if you are, please subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Trying to get up to over 1,000 subscribers here. But anyway, I was so excited. I was on a high Tuesday night. I said, seriously, there's not many things in sports that make me happier than the Sabres beating the Maple Leafs. It's so much fun. Fuck them. Seriously, for me, the Yankees beating the Red Sox, Notre Dame when they beat Michigan, and that might be obviously the Bills when every time they beat Miami or New England. That's about it, man. I don't care. Well, I do care what the Sabres record is, but just beat Toronto. That alone can make me happy, man. It's a great feeling to beat Toronto. This team's fun. I'm excited about it. I feel like I don't want to go back and watch our podcast from a year ago, because they'd be like, who the fuck is this guy right now that's talking to Joe Yerdon on this podcast?
Respect your roots, Pat. Respect where you've come from.
They got some good players. And you know what else, too? I'll pull this up. You're watching on video. This guy right here, Jack Eichel, my little bobblehead of him. By the way, they are winning 5-1 tonight. I've been kind of tracking that. So they'll probably be 1 point out of a playoff spot, but they do have one game more played. But anyway, they got 3 first-round picks, man. And that Vegas pick, who we thought was going to be right near the bottom, might not end up being near the bottom.
Yeah.
I can't, before I turn over to you, Joe, I can't believe how many times last year I would tell you, please go sell the fans on hope. Remember that? Remember how many times I told you that?
You're telling me that at the beginning of the season. You were saying at the beginning of the year.
And you struggled to do it, which anybody would. Any normal human being would struggle to do it.
Let's not try to remake history here. Like, of course it was hard to do.
I do got one more topic that I want to talk about with the Sabres, and the Bulldog from WGR, Chris Parker. Somebody had tweeted him. I'm gonna throw this tweet up and I'll read it for people listening. It concerns the Sabres goaltending. We kind of hit on it a little bit last week. We talked a little bit about Devin Levi and Portillo both going back. But anyway, this is about UPL, because this is something I've been wanting to ask you all week. And I saw this tweet. I'm like, I want to screenshot this and make sure we discuss it. Somebody asked, a guy named Tim Brown asked the Bulldog. He says, any chance they keep Anderson around for another year, or will it finally be UPL's turn and maybe some other veteran backup? And Bulldog said, this is the thing to watch most closely, as I think it may offer a clue as to what they think they can be next season. They need a real move for a proven goalie who isn't 40 years old. If UPL beats out that guy, great. But settling for a UPL/Anderson tandem would not be good, in his opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Um,
Why?
I agree with it because I don't, UPL's has had a very busy, difficult season with Rochester. There was some injury stuff before, again, which, hey, injuries are becoming an actual thing you got to worry about with him. The numbers haven't been super, like, by any stretch. Like, the save percentage is under 900. The goals against, which is a team stat, just like wins are, pretty high. But the Amerks are a team that has very poor defense. Like, they're exceedingly poor on defense. And Luukkonen he's had to battle. He's had to be almost like an 80's goalie when you think about it. He's had to just keep his team in games enough so that they can, so they can maybe outscore the opponent, because, you got Jack Quinn, you got JJ Peterka. Those guys have been scoring at ridiculous rates all season long. Peterka's a point a game, Quinn's a point and a half per game, this season. Like, those guys can help bail you out. And Luukkonen's just had to try to keep things as quiet as possible while under fire every single game. He's facing, like, I think 34 or 35 shots a game.
Wow.
As a professional, that's obscene. Like,
Wow.
that's an obscene amount of shots for a pro to face. That's the kind of stuff he was, I don't even think he faced that many shots per game when he played in Sudbury. And that team played some of the worst defense I've ever seen in the OHL going back. But, like, Luukkonen was like the goalie of the year, the co-goalie of the year in the OHL that year, or in the CHL. I'm sorry, he was the goalie of the year in the OHL, I think. I don't know. Either way, he was fantastic. But I don't know that you really know what you got with him now. Like, they're keeping him in Rochester because they want Rochester to make the playoffs. They're in a fight. They're in an absolute dogfight right now to try to make the playoffs, which, hey, that's a good bonding thing, especially if they can make it, because if they make it, they've earned it. But Luukkonen has just had such a rough year of just trying to keep it together, because that team is just so leaky on defense. He got a handful of games earlier this year in Buffalo, and he looked pretty damn good. This is when the goaltending was at its absolute worst in Buffalo, when he came up, and he put up like a 915 save percentage in, however many starts he had, but he was really good. I would have loved to have seen him play more in the NHL this year, but, I respect what they're doing with Rochester, so that's fine. But if you're going to crown him and say that you want to split the starts 50-50 with him and Anderson next year, you are begging for problems to happen, because think of what they had to deal with injuries this year. The rigmarole that they had to go through to, just getting bodies up and around, bringing guys up from Cincinnati to play in Rochester. Michael Hauser had to make a couple of pinch starts again in Buffalo, for the second straight year. Hauser's a good, hey, listen, he's a good everyman goalie. Like, that's fine. But that can't be your fail-safe solution.
So that's health. Health
time.
has a lot to do with why you agree.
Health, Anderson's age is it has to be a factor. I mean, he's 41. It's absolutely a factor. I would be, if they're going to run that back next year, if you're going to run UPL and Anderson as your duo next year, I don't know what kind of message you're sending to the team at that rate, because you're saying, like, hey, team camaraderie, like, hey, we'll rally around each other. That's cool and all, but for 82 games, and you're thinking, with the way you've played here in the second half of the season, you got people thinking playoffs next year. Again,
next year's not a cute story. This is a cute story, how the Sabres have turned things around this year, and we're excited. Next year, I don't think the expectation should be this is a cute story anymore.
No.
Next year, the expectation should be we should be in the mix for, but not necessarily in the playoffs, but they should be, not deserve. They haven't deserved anything yet.
Right.
They should be in the mix for the playoff spot, not for adoration from people who thought they were going to be terrible, like me and probably a lot of fans. I guess what I'm lost a little bit with when it comes to UPL is determining whether I think it was better for him to stay in Rochester in this playoff run. And I understand, and you've explained very well the benefits of that. But then I'm also like, all right, well, don't you think the team would probably have a little bit better idea of what they might get from him going forward if he played another 10 to 12 games in Buffalo with the Sabres? That's kind of where I'm at a loss right now.
Yeah.
I get the benefits of him being in Rochester. Again, you laid it out perfectly well. I get that. But I'm also like, well, I would have liked to seen him play here more in Buffalo because ultimately he's going to succeed or fail as a Buffalo Sabre. Why not get him more games here? That's where I'm kind of at a loss a little bit.
Yeah, that's something that I've been, I haven't yelled about it a lot because I mean it's hard to be extra critical of the coaching staff and management because they've done a lot of really good things here. I know they're trying to do right by the fans of Rochester. I get it. I get it 100%. The fans in Rochester are very, very peculiar breed. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're most fans of minor league teams will root those guys on when they go to the pros. Not Rochester. No, they want them to stay there as long as possible to make sure that they can win and make the playoffs and win a Calder Cup. Like that's the kind of situation they want there, which is very strange. Whatever. I'll never understand it because like I'm always of the mind of if I'm a fan of a minor league team, I want to see those guys move on and have success. I'm sure there's a good number of those fans that also want to see that, but also they don't want it to come at the detriment of their own team, which is fair. Like that's fair. But when you're a minor league team, you're a farm team, you're there to help those guys grow into becoming NHL players.
Right.
And in UPL's case, like, I wanted to see him play 10, 15 more games at the NHL level. I wanted that. And I think that was a big reason why they wanted they signed Anderson was to have him be to be a mentor for Luukkonen because why wouldn't you want to have a guy that's really scraped and clawed and really gone hard on being on being such a solid pro. I mean, a 300 plus winning, game winning guy. Like that's a guy who played on a lot of crap teams for a long time. And he's had an exceptional career, everything considered. Like he's had just an outstanding career. But that's where this whole development plan, and granted, this all started under Bottrell with how they wanted to develop it. Things have gone sideways beyond Luukkonen's control, beyond Bottrell's control in some cases. The double hip surgery, which came up because after he won gold at the World Juniors for Finland, he twinged something a little bit, and they said, "All right, let's get the double hip surgery. We'll get it done. We'll have him ready to go for camp." They did that, and they got him going. And then the plan that year was to have him play in Cincinnati, swap some time out at Rochester, and then really get your feet under him as a pro. Well, injuries happen, and Luukkonen had to quickly move his way up the ranks, where he's, he goes from, being a steady Cincinnati guy to splitting time in Rochester and Cincinnati to like, oh no, now he's got to come up to Buffalo. Like every bit of the strategy that they used to try to, develop him the right way went sideways because of health reasons, because stuff happens in hockey. Like that's just the way it goes. But right now they're in a spot because they still don't really know what they've got as an NHL guy. And that's the worrying part. Like, the argument this year was that the job was there for him to take it in training camp. And he performed probably the worst of all the guys in training camp.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, hey, listen, he's a kid. He's the youngest of the guys, whatever, send him down. Like, that's fine. Let him work on it there. Then maybe when it's time, he comes back up. Well, he came back up because, Tokarski got COVID. Anderson got hurt. Dell was bad. Everything went sideways at the same time so that he got pressed into duty.
I remember that. We had a podcast that week and we were talking about how we should stay in Rochester, and then everybody got hurt.
Yeah.
And they had no choice
Yeah.
but to bring him up. One more Sabres question here that I wanted to ask you. When it comes to Craig Anderson, and we won't get into specific names now. We'll have plenty of time to do that. But let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that you think the Sabres should move on from Anderson this offseason. They're obviously not going to move on from UPL. And you want to find an upgrade. You want somebody who's better than Craig Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, given what he's given to the team on and off the ice this year, and again, we don't need to get into specific players yet, but do you think that'll be reasonably easy to get out for the Sabres to well, the cap won't be an issue, but for maybe the Sabres to attract somebody who's better than Craig Anderson to want to come here? Do you think that'll be reasonably easy for them to be able to do?
If you're looking for somebody to just kind of spend a year or two here, the choices in free agency aren't good. Again,
Right.
the choices aren't really very good there. If you want to swing a trade for a guy that's got a year left, maybe that's a solid pro, like Semyon Varlamov in the Islanders, like he's got a year left. I think he's got a year left on his contract after this season. So you can bring him in and say, like, hey, listen, play for a new deal. You're not going to get that deal here probably, but like just play for a new deal. Hey, maybe you are going to get it here. I don't know.
Sure.
But just know that we're going to have you split time. You're going to carry the load for the most part, but Luukkonen's going to get a fair number of starts. And Varlamov's had to do that the last 2 years with the Isles with Ilya Sorokin there. Like that's something he's gotten used to doing. But that's the kind of player you got to look for. I think everybody's pipe dream would be like Marc-Andre Fleury, have him come in, be the nicest guy in the world, and really help things out. But like, he ain't coming to Buffalo. Like that I don't see that happening unless he wants to be near Pittsburgh, but not in Pittsburgh. I can't see that happening. But like, if you trade for a guy like Varlamov, or maybe you can sign a guy like Ville Husso, the Blues. He was their backup against the Sabres on Thursday night, but he's had an outstanding season. But if I'm that guy, I'm looking for a long-term deal, which if you're the Sabres, I don't think you're signing anybody to a long-term deal, and you're not trading. I don't think trading for a guy with a long-term contract is the right move either, because if you're dead set that Devin Levi is your guy, or Portillo, right, although I'm less optimistic Portillo's gonna sign in Buffalo. But if you believe that Levi's your future, your goalie of the future, and you're going to bring him in, you can't block the path to the NHL. You cannot do that. That's what got him stung years ago with Cal Peterson, was that, they traded for Leonard, and they had Ullmark and Jonas Johansson, they're waiting in the wings to move on to the NHL. And so, if you're Peterson, I would not signed either. I would have been looking for another place to go too, but they don't want to do that with Levi. And at least in my thinking, now, if they don't believe Levi's going to be a guy, then, maybe you say, screw it. Maybe we'll trade for John Gibson. Maybe we'll trade for, somebody else who's got, some years left on a contract. But that's why the goalie spot is such a fascinating off-season point, because it's going to tell a lot about where they think they are, where they think they can go, and where they think the guys that they have in the pipeline, where they're at and where they think they're going to go.
Yeah.
Because if they go short term, like, hey, guy on a 1 year, get him in there, have Luukkonen play. You can figure out what Luukkonen does. Maybe this guy keeps you in the hunt, keeps you in the race, so that maybe you're knocking on the door of of a playoff spot, or at least competing for one. Like the whole, playing important games in March thing, you want to be doing that with this crew. And conceivably the offense is going to be a lot better next year. The defense is going to be really solid, because you got, Dahlin, Power, and Samuelson on your left side. It's really good. It's gonna be really good. But you got to know, you got to have a real good idea of where you think you're going to be next year. If you think you can get a guy like Varlamov, that's a pretty good way to be like, okay, we're going to make a push at a playoff spot. If we don't get it, it's not going to kill us, but we got to be knocking on the door. That's where I think they got to be.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Goaltending, without question, is going to be the biggest storyline of the summer and going in the next season. And for what it's worth, I've heard that the Sabres organization is significantly higher on Devin Levi at this point than Portillo. Before we get to our starting five draft, 80 sitcoms, I want to spend a minute or two talking about our favorite idiot quarterback around the NFL, Baker Mayfield. So I should have done my homework. Baker Mayfield was on a podcast, and I'm sorry, but I don't know the podcast. But essentially, he was complaining about being booed, and basically suggested, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, that he would like to be able to go to your job and boo you and see how you like it. If he went into your everyday job that you worked and he booed you. And this obviously got picked up everywhere. Baker Mayfield, big name. What are your thoughts on this? Because I will say this, and I tweeted this out too, Joe. I said, hey, Baker, if you want to come to my job and boo me, if I deserve it, fine, come boo me. He's acting like a victim here and all this, what's going on with Cleveland. Now, signing Deshaun Watson, that's a whole other, can of worms. And I don't really want to get into that. Our feelings on Deshaun Watson, I'm sure they line up similar, mine and yours, when it comes to Deshaun Watson. But anyway, the point being, if it wasn't him, it was going to be someone else. They were done with Baker. The guy has had every opportunity in the world, and have some thicker skin. You deserve to get booed. That simple as that. What are your thoughts on this? Half of me thinks it's funny that he wants to come boo us at our jobs, but the other half is like, are you serious, dude? This is why you've become so fucking unlikable around the league. But anyway, what are your thoughts?
Baker had a real good case to be a super sympathetic case, because let's face it, Browns ran him out there with a separated non-throwing shoulder for half the season.
Yeah, he was hurt. He's hurt multiple times.
That's pretty bogus. Like, I mean, I get it. It's not your throwing arm, but like, man, you got to do everything else. Yeah. You got to take snaps. You got to run. You got to do all this other stuff. They protected him very poorly. The offensive line was bad. And then, they told him like, hey man, you're a guy. Then they said, actually, we're trading for Deshaun Watson. You're not really our guy. What's that? What'd you guys say? No, nothing, Baker. No. We're not doing that. Don't believe those rumors. We're definitely not giving him $240 million guaranteed. We're definitely not doing that. We are totally doing that. Sorry, Baker. But you could look at it and be like, man, this dude got screwed every which way from Sunday. And instead he comes out and he's just like, you know what? I want to go to people's work and boo them. Like, dude, screw off, man. Like, just, you can play the sympathy. You can play the sympathy part. Like, you can do that. Like, I mean, maybe people are sick of you from your commercials and crap, but like, man, oh man, just, you're taking an L, but like the L's being forced on you. Just people have sympathy for that kind of crap, because who the hell hasn't been, dumped out of a job they told they were going to keep or whatever. Like, that kind of stuff is much more identifiable. Instead, you're talking about you want to show up to somebody's office and boo them because you don't like what they're doing. Like, get a life, man. Like, I mean,
he's so
overrated, grow up, man. But like, geez,
he's so overrated, real, Joe. It bothers me how overrated he is. He's one of those guys.
He's overhyped. He is. I don't know if it's. I can't.
He's even, overrated too.
I don't even know if he's overrated, because like,
he is. That team was too good.
The last 2 years they've run him out there to get his ass beat. Like,
I agree to an extent.
Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can't do anything when you're running around for saving your life.
They got 2 Pro Bowl linemen. They've had 2 Pro Bowl receivers. They have the best running back tandem in the entire NFL. Now, I know he's had a bunch of different coaches, and that was never stable, coordinators, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, Sam Darnold, if you want to talk about somebody who's gotten bad breaks, he'd go into the Jets, no fucking talent whatsoever. Then he goes to Carolina, not much more talent. And I just don't think Sam Darnold's very good. But Baker Mayfield had the weapons galore. All right. They did a lot. They got, by the way, Austin Hooper, and they got 2 good tight ends. So Cleveland was never short of weapons. Now, again, injuries matter. Some things matter. The dude was just never consistent. Josh Allen's, what an overrated draft class the quarterback class of 2018 was. Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson won an MVP. We'll see how he does over the next 4 or 5 years. It's very exciting.
Lamar Jackson, who they wanted to make a wide receiver and not play quarterback.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he proved them wrong. It's him and Josh, But yeah, dude, Baker Mayfield sucks. I'm sorry. And I don't care where he goes. I'm telling you right now, Seattle, don't matter where he goes. He's going to not be a good football player. You can put him on the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Let's say Patrick Mahomes tears his ACL and he's out for the year, and they say, we better go get an experienced guy. And they bring in Baker Mayfield. That offense is going to stink. They're not going to be good. He's just not a good quarterback. He's so overrated. And
What
I
I
could keep
think
going on and on. It's starting to feel personal. Well, it is personal because I don't like him. I don't like him. He's one of those fucking guys who blames the other people all the time. When you got
what
Odell Beckham's father pointing out film and how bad you are at quarterbacking, man.
are
Come
we
on.
gonna talk Odell Beckham as a
No,
paragon
I
of virtue
know.
here? Come
I
on, man. This
know.
dude's
But
selling NFTs with Aaron Rodgers, man. Like, come
I
on. Like,
know. I
let's
know.
let's relax on that.
I
Like, if Odell's my reason for not liking a guy, I don't have
no,
very good evidence.
that's I agree. All right.
But like, you mentioned that quarterback class, and you mentioned all those names. You're like, wow, these guys all stink except these two. Is like, didn't you just make the argument that like it really depends on where you get drafted and the
to an
situation you
extent.
wind up in? Like,
To an extent.
Allen
Baker
wound up.
Mayfield, I
Allen
think
got treated like a king here and got the proper coaching because again, we talked about like rewriting history with the Sabre stuff. The way people come out of the woodwork now to talk about how like, oh, nobody believed in Allen when he came out of Wyoming. It's like they had pretty good reason not to, like there was some really solid statistical reasons and everything else why not to. That dude got better as a pro because he put in the work and the coaches did right by him. Same for Lamar Jackson. Like the Ravens are always a good team, annoyingly
sure.
so. So Lamar Jackson winds up there and it's like, oh crap, well he's immediately better than Flacco. And they were just like, yeah, no, he can run. He can go. It's him. It's his show. And they took advantage of that. Like, that's the right thing. You got to tell me the Browns and the Jets and the Cardinals are like teams that know how to figure it out. Man. Like the Cardinals,
I agree.
like the Cardinals who are busy trying to run Kyler Murray out of town now. Like, come on, man.
Your
Like the
theory,
Browns are always bad. Like
your
the
theory,
Jets, the
your theory's
Jets.
right. Your theory's right. I'm not questioning your theory. I just feel Baker Mayfield could have went to 32 different teams, and I think you would have seen almost the same result because I just don't think he's a good quarterback. I just don't. There's too many weapons on that team for that offense to not be better than it was, and he's got to shoulder some of the blame. And again, stop blaming other people. That's all I'm saying, man. It will be interesting to see because he's obviously done in Cleveland. Like, where is he even going to go? Seattle's the one team I could think of right now where he could potentially go and potentially compete to start. There's no team out there right now that's in dire need of a quarterback. And if they are, they're going to draft one. Like Carolina ain't trying to sign Baker Mayfield right now. Carolina's trying to get a quarterback next week.
They'll draft Malik Willis or
Pickett maybe. They're going to take somebody.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Pitt. Yeah, whatever.
I think Baker Mayfield's going to have to swallow his ego a little bit and just wait a year and hope that he gets another opportunity.
You know where he should go? You know where he should sign and be a backup and just kind of wait
the Birmingham Stallions?
No. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Good fit potentially. Rival.
I know people here like think Trubisky's going to be the real deal there. I ain't buying it. Like, dude, I watched them for years with the friggin' Bears.
I'm not sold on Trubisky.
You kidding me? The dude threw the other team more than he did the Bears. Like,
I can see Pittsburgh drafting a quarterback and having Mitch be a bridge
Pittsburgh
guy.
Should.
I do
Carolina
think
should.
I agree. I do think Mitch is better than Baker Mayfield. I just don't think the guy is that good. I can't believe we just spent 10 minutes of our lives discussing Baker freaking Mayfield.
You did this to us, Pat. I
did this. All right, let's get to our starting five. That's how we end every week here on Casual Friday. So it was a very big day for Team Pat Moran last week. Best 90s sitcoms. I won 62% of the vote, or 68 to 32. One of my best wins ever.
Wait, was it 68-32 or 62-38? Because the graphic says one thing.
It was. Well, I want it to be 62 or 68-32. 62-38. Here's who I drafted, folks. I took Seinfeld, Full House, Spin City, Family Matters, and Boy Meets World. Joe drafted Frasier, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Roseanne, Married with Children, and News Radio. I think this draft personally was about two things. I think my TGIF hits, those went well for me. And I think, to your defense, I think people hating on shows.
Too good.
I think taking Roseanne and Married with Children are two staples in American sitcom history. I think those were taken for granted. And
dude, my entire list was taken for granted. Are you kidding me?
It did not resonate for whatever reason. I just feel like Roseanne and Married with Children did not resonate.
I'll just say this. We've had a lot of talks in messages about internet polls. those kinds of things. And this one really ranks out as the West Seneca police Twitter beating chicken wings in a Buffalo Twitter poll contest.
Uh-oh.
I don't know.
Don't
Maybe
get
that's
me
what it
started.
sounds like.
Dude, don't get me started with that best of Buffalo bracket.
Dude,
shout out Trainwreck Sports. Just
chicken wings losing to a police department Twitter account as the best thing in Buffalo. Give me a break. And your tournament is done.
The transit drive-in, if I went to 100 people randomly in the street, probably have never even been there once, always ends up in the Elite Eight of that poll every year.
I might have driven by it once, but
well, look, those guys have fun and they get
they do. Oh yeah, they got me worked up about it.
Exactly. So. Mission accomplished. They get reactions. So
I was really worried.
To your point,
I know the police Twitter account was going to beat out Rick Jenneret, and thankfully that did not happen. Because if that happened, I was going to be calling out everybody publicly on Twitter to be like, "What the fuck is your problem? Like, are you kidding me?"
Yeah. All right. So here we go. This week, so we said we're going to go down by decades. Last week was 90s. This week is 80s. And by the way, I feel like the 80s is a home game for me. I always do. Anything 80s. I live for the 80s. I still live embarrassingly so for the 80s. And then next week, we're going to wrap up and we'll do 70s. But this week is going to be best 80s sitcom. Now, I went with the no-brainer, I think, last week because I had first pick with Seinfeld. And so that means Joe's on the clock this week. So he's going to have the first pick. And is there an upset in the making here?
Do you think this is the same situation where there's an automatic number one? As far as 80s shows go, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah.
So you're not okay. You're not okay. No. I'm honestly curious because 90s, it was pretty much it's gonna be, especially because we're anti-Friends people. It was like Seinfeld was automatic.
But people who aren't anti-Friends people will defend Friends. They'll stick they'll dig into the dirt and defend them. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure anything's in comparing the 80s with what I'm assuming is going to be your first pick.
Okay. Well, if I assume your assumption's correct because I'm picking Cheers first. Because Cheers is easily the best sitcom of the 80s, without a doubt in my mind. It's the best one. It think of everything that it did and then everything that it went through. Coach dies, or he passes away while they're making the series. They have a big turnover with Shelley Long to Kirstie Alley. They bring in Woody. They bring doing all this stuff. Frasier becomes like a big side character, and they bring in Lilith and all these characters. And it was just like, wow, you guys made this work for eons.
Kept reinventing the cycle,
and stayed funny the entire time. There wasn't really a letdown. The only letdown season I would say is the last season that Shelley Long was on, because the Sam and Diane thing was just kind of all right, enough with these two. I'm done with this. But they moved, they changed everything up so swiftly and so smoothly that immediately it was just wow, okay, no, it still works. It still works and still as funny as ever.
Let me give you a hot take, man.
Okay.
I think Cheers is the greatest traditional American sitcom ever. Not just the 80s. Ever. Wow. Traditional American sitcom. Now, The Office is my favorite TV show of all time. But that was a mockumentary. That's a different kind of style of comedy. I'm talking about laugh tracks, perform in front of a studio audience type of thing. Traditional American sitcoms. Nothing has ever, to me, been better than this show for a lot of the reasons you just said. The way it just kept reinventing itself with different characters and stuff. And the only thing I will say about Cheers, though, and you could probably say the same about almost every show in the 80s, is it wouldn't work today. That shit ain't gonna fly today.
A good part of it would not.
Dude, I still watch it from time to time. It's very dated.
There are some episodes where it's just kind of yikes.
Carla walks by, dude's smacking her ass. Everyone's getting a good laugh at the bar. She might laugh. She might throw your drink in your face. Sometimes she laughs or has a wisecrack. Nowadays, shit, that ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? You can't. The stuff that went on Cheers in the 80s is vastly different from the world we live in today. So sometimes it can be a little bit almost cringy watching certain aspects of it, the womanizing, things like just
Yeah.
that you see on TV that
I would
was
argue that the
not
way,
necessarily celebrated, but it was
yeah,
humorous and it was laughed at back then. Wouldn't work today.
I would argue that the way that Carla handled everything of those sorts of degrees made it like, oh, okay, right. Like these guys are gonna be pigs. Like she's gonna
Yeah. Oh, I love
dunk on them ferociously.
Yeah.
Sam being a huge womanizer probably wouldn't go over that great, but like, come on, former star athlete being a womanizer. Like,
one other thing about
come
that
on.
show I hated, Joe. I'm getting this conversation. I have a whole podcast about Cheers. It's one of my 5 favorite shows of all time. The one other thing I hated about it, Sam Malone, horrible baseball player like on the show. I remember he had in a dream. I think he had a dream where he was hallucinating or something. He was having a catch with a kid, and this guy was a former major league pitcher, and he's throwing the ball like this and stabbing at the ball and barely even catching it. It just looks so unnatural. Oh my God, it legitimately pissed me off watching that scene. He lost all credibility as a former Boston Red Sox pitcher. But anyway, good pick. I mean, you had to pick Cheers.
Right. If I didn't pick Cheers, man, I'd be like, here, everybody vote for Pat. Make him win 98% to 2.
All right, so I'm on the clock and I got 2 here. Now, the first one is easy for me. I don't think that this is necessarily one that the masses would say, oh, this is definitely number 2. But for me, for personal reasons, it's Family Ties. This was one of my favorite shows growing up. Alex B. Keaton, I'm talking about Michael J. Fox, of course. He was my hero as a kid, man. I still remember this to this day, Joe. He wore ties all the time. I went to West Hurdle Academy in like Black Rock for elementary school. And I literally remember 6th, 7th grade, everyone's wearing t-shirts or sweaters or whatever. It's public Buffalo school. I was wearing ties because I wanted to be like Alex P. Keaton. That's how much of an influence he had on me as a character, but he was awesome. Mallory was hot as hell. It was just a great, again, traditional American family. I loved them. There were some tender moments. They always, they busted each other's balls, but they always had each other's back. I'm talking about the kids. It was a great show, man. I loved it a lot. So that's one, and that one was easy for me. This is where this gets hard for me because I've weighed and knowing I was going to have the next 2, and I was assuming you were going to take Cheers. I'm weighing being honest with myself and bringing myself back to those days versus what the fallout might be today.
Oh, no.
For obvious reasons.
Oh, no.
And I decided that I'm going to take myself back to the 80s and the Cosby Show. That's my second pick. This was like the first Black all-American type family on TV. It was just happy. And by the way, it was the first predominantly Black show to just completely dominate the ratings too. I mean, this was the show. You talk about all these NBC must-see Thursdays, these lineups through the years. This was the one that kicked it off, man. Thursdays, 8 p.m., NBC. I hate saying it now. It's almost in some ways embarrassing to say it, but I loved Bill Cosby. I thought he was hilarious. I thought he was funny. He was a great dad. The kids were awesome. Theo was really cool, man. I loved Felice Rashad, who, by the way, Rashad's real life wife. I know everything he's done, and I know that tarnishes it. I'm not going to try to say that it doesn't or deny it in this. Maybe fans might hold that against me. Maybe they won't.
They're
probably going to.
They're
probably. But I'm just being truthful with myself here. I'm taking myself back to teenage Patrick in the 80s. And this show was just except for Cheers, this show was as good as it gets. So I'm going to live or die with it, man. I'm going to stick with the Cosby Show. Now you're going to be up and you got 2.
See, I don't disagree with your sentiment, but I just couldn't pick it. Like, it just can't. Like, it's too much of an association. It's like radioactive now.
It's almost like saying Chris Benoit. If we did a favorite wrestler draft and I took Chris Benoit. That might be a little bit extreme, but the general point of what I'm making, and it sucks too because you're gonna have 2 coming up now. I was really torn between 2 that I really liked, which are 2 completely different shows, and I ended up going with the Cosby Show. So we'll see how this plays out. You're on the board. You got 2.
Well, hopefully I can make this very punishing for you. I also assume you weren't bullied wearing ties to school at all. I'm hoping.
Not really.
Okay.
I was looked at a little bit weird.
Okay.
Not bullied. People knew I didn't try to hide. I didn't try to hide it. I was
Okay.
sort of popular.
All right. Well, I mean, hey, if you can flex it, man. That's good. That's good on you. So all right. So listen, yeah, there's so many good 80s sitcoms, and like the syndication made everything so much more fun to watch because it just made it last even longer.
Sure.
And my next two picks are prime examples of that. My next choice is The Golden Girls.
Fuck.
Yeah, you're dead in the water now, pal.
That's what I
You're
was.
DOA.
I was torn because the Golden Girls was awesome too, man, and obviously much more likable characters in it. I was really torn over that. I was really hoping that you might say, "Yeah, I don't like that." God damn it!
Yeah,
That's
you blew it. You blew it pretty bad there, and and Night Court. Night Court with Harry Anderson and Marky Post and John Larroquette and Richard Mole, the whole crew, like very underappreciated show. I think at the time. I mean, it was on for a long time.
Yeah,
it was like what 8, 9, 10 seasons maybe.
Shitty time slot. It had like that 9:30 time slot on Thursdays. Awesome freaking show though, man.
Yeah, and legendary TV theme, like the whole thing. But like, man, Harry Anderson was just so damn good. And the whole show, and like Larroquette, like Larroquette, like that was like that spun him off into doing like so much other stuff that, like, I mean, granted, it didn't really last that long, but like that dude was always so good because he just played such a smug prick, and he was still
a great
funny.
Smug prick, yeah.
Dan Fielding, like that was such a great role for him, but man, but like when that went into syndication and more people got to watch it, they're like, oh my god, this show is so funny. Like, yeah, it is. And it's amazing that it got kind of buried for just for being on it late at night, I guess.
It's actually, I think that show's gotten more popular through the years as generations catch on to it in syndication. You get much more respect for it. You know what's funny? I feel like this is the AFC playoff round right now, the wild card round. And I'm starting to feel like I'm in the New England Patriots defense. And you're Josh Allen and me right now going up and down the field.
Throwing
just
lasers.
scoring at me. I'm in trouble, man. The wheels are coming off.
Really better have a way to dig out of this.
I don't know, because this was the 80s. And nobody loves the 80s more than I do, but the 80s was very top heavy. You know what I'm saying? Like the best shows, way better than the next tier. And we've gotten past the big tier. And I make a fair argument that you've already gotten at least 3 out of 4, if not 4 out of 5. So I feel like I'm in a world of trouble already. I got 2 coming up here. Well, fuck it. At this point, I'm just going to stay true to the shows that I personally liked, and I really don't give a shit right now if fans are going to agree with me or not. But I liked Who's the Boss, so I'm going with Who's the Boss. Tony Maselli was awesome. I like Tony Danza. He played such a good idiot, a lovable idiot on the show. Look, Samantha, probably one of my first crushes ever. I think she was like 14-year-old me was in love with Samantha. Alyssa Milano, of course, I'm talking about. Grandma Mona was pretty funny too, like a perverted old woman and stuff. I didn't like Angela like that much, but that was a really good show. I liked it a lot. So I'm going to go with that one. I feel good about it. And then the other one is Different Strokes. And this was a pretty cool concept. Again, you have an old rich white guy adopts 2 black children. And I'll tell you this, I mean, it's easy to look back all these years now and forget, or if you're young, you never know this, but if you're old, you forget about it. I'm going to tell you right now, Gary Coleman was one of, if not the biggest child stars around, maybe ever. He was a huge star back in those days, a child star, man. He was funny as hell. It was a funny show, but it also, we talked about this with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It had some serious messages. There were serious moments and almost like in a trend-setting type of way. This was a good show, man. Again, I don't know at this point if this is really going to resonate with people. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I liked it. So there you go. So I got Who's the Boss and Different Strokes. And I think you're on the clock and you got your last 2 coming up here.
My last 2. Okay. So I'm going to call this my revenge week because I could pull back. I could be like, I'll just pick a couple of things I like. that I like that I that are like really like low key, like nobody remembers them. Just kind of like yeah, I'll go with that one. I'm out for blood. Okay, like this.
You're pissed about last week still. You're gonna run the score up is what you're doing.
Yes, no, yeah, absolutely. No, Josh Allen stays on the field when it's 65-0. I don't care. I want him to break every touchdown record at this point. No, it's so my last two. I'm going with Taxi.
All right. Good
Taxi,
show.
which was we had like one of these discussions in the past before, and I went back and like had to watch some old episodes and watch some I watched some like interview with Christopher Lloyd, and then I was like some of the scenes that they were showing from that, I was like, oh my god, this show was so funny. And like Andy Kaufman got a lot of like the hype for playing Latka.
Yeah,
Latka. Yeah, so like he totally goofy, playing a goofball kind of character. But like Judd Hirsch was great. Christopher Lloyd was great. Danny DeVito was incredible. Like the whole show, even Tony Danza, like he just jumps in there. He's pretty good. Marilu Henner, I think also like that's a stupidly loaded cast for like for a show in the 80s.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Like Danny DeVito, like the first thing that he really like got on the map for. And like everybody's like, who is this guy? He's a maniac.
Yeah.
And man, it's such a good show. And I can't believe it only lasted it started late 70s and only went to like 84, I think it was. But like,
like 5 seasons, maybe.
Syndication played all the time. It was on all the time in syndication. Man, oh man, it was so good. My last choice, some of those ABC shows back in the day were really strong, but it was always on a weird night, like Wednesday. Like it was a Wednesday night or something. It was just kind of like, all right, whatever. But Growing Pains was like
the Sabres.
The Sabres, man. Like with Alan Thicke and Kirk Cameron, and then they get the last like season or two, they get like Leonardo DiCaprio is on the show, and it's just kind of like, what? How do you pull this off with this? With this show? And it was just like, it was a really good show, and it was very very sweet and wholesome, classic 80s sitcom style, but like hit it out of the park all the time. He had those like serious episodes, but then you also had a dude named Boner on the show. So like like what else could you ask for?
Kirk Cameron was one of the biggest teenage heartthrobs of the 80s. My sister was completely obsessed with him. All right, well, I got one. This is it. Last pick.
You sound so disheartened. You're like, well, this is the end.
I'm at least going to turn the card in here. Hey, you never know. I will say one thing before I get to this last pick. We have had, I don't know if it's ever been to this extent, because I just being honest with you, I feel like I'm getting crushed here. But there have been some polls that we've done where it kind of felt like it was going to be really lopsided, and then it wasn't. I'd be shocked if this isn't. But anyway, I do feel good about
last week.
Yeah. Well, I thought last week would be close, but this week I don't expect it to be close. Anyway, I feel pretty good about this one. I was torn between a couple, but I'm going to go with Newhart. I did like this show.
Oh, great show.
I will say this though. I don't know how you feel about it, because it was one of those love it or hate it, the endings, the dream. I didn't like it. That bothered me.
Yeah.
Right. But as a whole, again, I'm not going to penalize the entirety of the show. I liked it a lot. Handyman, and not just Bob Newhart, the Handyman George was really funny. And then and I remember one of the most famous sayings at times, Larry's my brother Daryl, my other brother Daryl.
Yeah.
This was a really good show, and it was on for quite a while too. It ran for almost, I'm looking it up now, 8 seasons, 1982 to 1990. So it ran for 8 seasons. I feel pretty good about this, but it's not that I don't like my picks. It's that I think the Cosby Show is going to hurt me, but not even if that didn't happen, I think the Golden Girls should have been the pick regardless. I just think that you got like 3. Like you had that murderer's row. You're 3, 4, 5 in your baseball batting lineup right now is just fucking crushing it. Out of the park. I did want to list a couple. I wrote some down here. A couple honorable mentions that we didn't mention, but I enjoyed these shows. I don't know about you, but again, I wrote these down. Webster, Head of the Class, Punky Brewster, Benson. I actually like that show. Full House, which is one of those shows we talked about this last week. There's a handful of shows where you could go 90s or 80s. This was around for 3 years in the 80s, 3 or 4 years in the 80s. Perfect Strangers, Mama's Family with Vicki Lawrence. That was pretty funny. Another one, The Jeffersons. Now, I consider The Jeffersons more of a 70s show, maybe a potential spoiler alert for next week, but this ran to 1985. So it's eligible for the 80s.
Wow.
Alf, Three's Company. That's another one where I think it's 70s eligible.
Yeah.
Probably no more for the 70s, but you could have went with those. Thing with those shows, though, is they kind of faded later on, and that's when it got into the 80s. But one you picked last week, Married with Children. I looked it up. It had 3 seasons in the 80s. So that would have been eligible. And then the one I was stuck with, but ultimately I didn't pull the trigger on it because I really don't think it wasn't a sitcom. It was more of a drama. The Wonder Years.
Yeah.
I gave that thought, but wouldn't you agree?
If you had said that, if you tried to force that in as a sitcom, I'd have been like, nah, man.
Yeah,
nah, man. That's
you would have ejected.
There were funny moments, but like that was way more of a drama.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let me recap these here for you guys. Everyone listening and watching. All right, so Joe selected Cheers, The Golden Girls, Night Court, Taxi, Growing Pains. I selected Family Ties, The Cosby Show, Who's the Boss, Different Strokes, and Newhart. I look at the list.
It's not like you pick bad shows here.
It's not like I pick bums.
Like both lists are good.
Yeah.
Mine's just has like super heavy hitters in it.
Cheers and The Golden Girls is just that. It's that 1-2 punch, man. It's Bo Bichette and Vlad Guerrero. We'll keep talking about the Blue Jays today. So that's what you have with 1-2. And again, Night Court is a very underrated show. One of the more underrated shows of the entire decade, by the way.
Yeah.
I really like that pick a lot. Like if I was writing a column, if I was reviewing this and writing a column, I would commend Night Court as a sleeper pick.
Yeah. You know what another one that slipped under the radar was Mr. Belvedere.
Oh,
because like that and Growing Pains were on like back to, I think they were on back to back.
I think it might have been Friday nights, maybe Friday nights. Maybe I can't remember for sure.
I don't know, but that was a good. And Bob Uecker like starring in a sitcom was like, which was wild. That was a really solid show.
This was fun. Might not be fun for me in the polls this weekend. We'll see. But anyway, go check out Joe's Twitter at Joe Yerdon or mine at Pat Moran Tweets. Make sure you vote. This poll will be up on Tuesday. Again, whether you're listening on the audio side or you're checking us out on YouTube. Appreciate all you guys. Make sure you check out Joe's podcast, Maintenance Day. Him and Lance Lazowski, they do an awesome job. That drops every Monday. Find that on Apple, Spotify, all those platforms, man. And hey, the Sabres are giving you some good content to talk about too, so that's always good. Thanks for doing this, buddy. I always appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. No, it's always fun. It's always fun to do this, and even late at night, it's still great.